want that, Elizabeth? Okay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I mean, first of all, that was like stand-up comedy. You're so amazing. And thank you for taking your time, you and Max, today to come here, because I know you have a new little baby, Magnus, at home, and we're so excited for you, and not to mention how busy you are producing movies and blogging away, which when I was on bed rest was just obsessively looking at your blog all the time, calling her and going, how do you do this? It's amazing. So she does it all. So thank you so much for being here and doing this. And thank you, all of you, for taking time out on this Friday to be here. I know you have many choices when you choose your charity airline, and we're so glad you chose this one today. But in thinking about having a baby for the first time, one of my very good friends recently called me. I'm going to put this on the ground. She recently called me because she was on her way to the hospital, and she was about to have her very first child. And she was so nervous about giving birth. She had a million questions. She wanted to know if she was going to lose her mind. Was she going to scream obscenities at her husband? Was she going to be shaved like a poodle? Was her body going to spontaneously split in half? And she wanted to know the exact level of pain she was going to endure, like where could I put it on a scale of 1 to 10, and I didn't tell her the truth, as none of us do. But primarily, she wanted to know how she was going to feel in that moment and what it would be like when you meet your baby for the very first time. And I tried to imagine, and I was talking to Jim, my husband, and I said, can you imagine describing that moment of pure joy that happens when your child is in your arms for the very first time? What are the words? And as I look around this room and I see a lot of my friends, I know that many of you have known this moment very well, with all the tears and the joy and the calling of relatives and just the pure ecstasy of sharing photos. We are parents that know the joy of having the most beautiful, brilliant, joyful, perfect baby on planet Earth, and that somehow heaven has opened up and delivered us an angel that looks adorable in every angle of an iPhone photo. And in my case, looks gorgeous printed on a bag or a pillow or an iPhone cover or anything that you can get on Tiny Prints. But as I do look around, I also see other friends who have had a very different experience. These are people who have had a baby before their expected due date. Babies so very small that they can fit into the palm of your hand, who are hooked up to artificial breathing devices and feeding tubes, children who are not ready to enter this world, with brains that aren't developed yet, with lungs that don't know how to pull air, with hearts that can't keep time. And every day for those babies and those families is an unknown. They wonder, will my baby even survive? And that's why I'm so honored to be here to talk about the March of Dimes. Premature birth is occurring around the world with alarming frequency, and too little is known actually about the reasons that it's happening. Worldwide, 15 million women are giving birth before the required gestational age of 37 weeks. And surprisingly, that rate of premature birth is higher in the US than in any other industrialized nation. The average cost of caring for an infant born premature is $50,000, but many of these babies can amass medical bills over $1 million. And imagine just being part of a family that accumulates that much debt before their baby even comes home to their house. It's staggering. Not to mention the emotional toll taken on these families who have had to visit their baby in these hospital wards and these NICUs while trying to raise other children and drive back and forth, and just to afford the medical care that they're receiving. The complications of premature birth can extend into childhood for many years, with both developmental and neuromuscular issues. And since the 1980s, the premature birth rate has risen over 30%, and 1 in 8 births is premature. So that's where March of Dimes comes in. They are partnering with leading doctors and researchers at Stanford Medical Center to try and find out the cause of this phenomenon that seems to be a growing problem in the United States and all over the world. But the biggest aspect of this problem is that no one really knows why women are giving birth so early. So I was lucky, my husband and I were lucky enough to visit the March of Dimes Prematurity Research Center at Stanford University School of Medicine last week with Jimmy and Joy Horowitz. And we got to see the amazing work that Dr. David Stevenson is doing there. I got to tour the neonatal intensive care unit and see firsthand the incredible care that's being given to these tiny infants and their very concerned parents. Dr. Stevenson explained to me that not only is premature birth the leading cause of newborn death in the U.S., but it is costing this country $26 billion annually. And that's why the work that he and his team is doing is so critical. These brilliant doctors and researchers will be spending their time trying to determine what factors contribute to premature birth. They study patterns of preterm birth, maternal genetic biomarkers, impact of infection and inflammation, and placental function and genetics. The March of Dimes is giving Stanford an unprecedented $20 million to fund this research center, and that is being matched by Stanford University to create a $40 million initiative. So when I was asked by Jimmy and Joy Horowitz to receive this award, I was really thinking about it, and I was thinking, why do I feel so connected to the March of Dimes? And then I remembered as a little girl, my grandfather was in the American Legion, which is sort of an elite group of veterans who raise money and go around the country and visit other war veterans. And every year, he would march in a Christmas parade, and he would put on his funny little black coat and that silly little hat. And I would go in Nashville, Tennessee, and sit on the side of the road and watch my grandfather. And I used to always say, "Why are you doing this, Jimmy?" And that was my granddad. And he would tell me that he was doing it to raise money for March of Dimes. And with the money that he received, he would apply for grants for nursing scholarships at Tennessee State University, where my mother taught the nursing program for 30 years. And also, speaking of my mother, because I have another connection to this, when I was in high school, my mother worked in a NICU. She has been a NICU nurse for over 35 years at Vanderbilt University Hospital in Nashville. And every weekend when I was a teenager, I would go to bring her and the other nurses coffee and donuts and visit all the little babies and see them in their incubators. So, and watch their just tireless efforts to take care of these moms and these babies. And she would come home at night and tell me their stories of little babies struggling to survive and mothers who were so young, just not understanding and holding their babies and just hoping and praying that their babies would be okay. So I feel very close to this organization, and I would like to think that my grandfather, Jimmy Witherspoon, and my mother, Betty, would be very proud of the money that we raised here today, which I am told, I was just told a minute ago, exceeds $1 million. That is a very extraordinary accomplishment for a very deserved cause. And imagine how many lives will be changed just by your efforts today. So thank you so much for all that you have done. The March of Dimes has a mission to give every baby a healthy start in life so that every parent can know that joy of the first moment of being able to see your beautiful, brilliant, joyful, healthy child just from the very first day of their life be healthy. Thank you so much.